Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, and things adjacent. And if you are tuning in, you might be smarter than the average bear. When people parrot corporate news talking points thinking they're politically aware, not understanding their tools of the oligarchy, can be quite embarrassing. We see this so often with different silos of thought. It's confirmation bias for beginners, though you may be a victim of said bias and think, oh no, I'm right. Because you know your side is right and the others are clearly delusional. It takes a certain mindset of predilection to be able to be as skeptical of your side as the other, right? And also to be willing to see when the other side is right without having to feel like you're losing or conceding a point. It's called detachment. And today, detachment is a bad word because you have to lead with your emotions in the social media world. Emotions are everything, and nuance is reviled. Emotions get clicks. Long-term objectivity be damned. Well, if my detachment offends anyone, I wish you luck with that. It's the thing that will, in the end, save me from running into brick walls that I created with my own emotional ping-ponging, which still exists, by the way. I just don't have to respond to it. Today's news is all about eliciting an emotional response. Headlines. Read the headlines gets people, oh. But if you actually read the whole article, you might actually get some other information out of the article. But no, they rely on people not reading the whole article. It's about eliciting an emotional response so that they can manufacture consent. Terrorism bad, Trump bad, Putin bad. And if you don't knee-jerkingly condemn these things out of hand, then you might be bad. Well, how about no shit, Sherlock? How about no shit, Sherlock? We know all these things are bad, right? You know, and so beyond the fact that these things might be bad, can we actually look at situations objectively? It's getting harder to do when the media keeps throwing these emotional hand grenades into our lives to get us to react instead of think, to have an actual conversation, you know, a debate, instead of just spewing emotional garbage all over your social media timeline. More thinking, less reacting, detachment. And with that, I want to read this article that I've been meaning to read for a long time. Why you think you're right even when you're wrong. This is from 2017. This is a couple of years ago, but there's some interesting information in here. Are you a soldier or a scout? Your answer to this question, says decision-making expert Julia Galliff, could determine how clearly you see the world. Imagine for a moment you're a soldier in the heat of battle, perhaps a Roman foot soldier, medieval archer, or Zulu warrior. Regardless of your time and place, some things are probably constant. Your adrenaline is elevated, and your actions stem from your deeply ingrained reflexes. Reflexes that are rooted in a need to protect yourself and your side and to defeat the enemy. Now try to imagine playing a very different role, the scout. The scout's job is to not attack or defend, it's to understand. The scout is the one going out, mapping the terrain, identifying potential obstacles. Above all, the scout wants to know what's really out there as accurately as possible. In an actual army, both the soldier and the scout are essential. You can also think of the soldier and the scout roles as mindsets, metaphors for how we all process information and ideas in our daily lives. Having good judgment and making good decisions, it turns out, depends largely about which mindset you're in. To illustrate the two mindsets in action, let's look at a case from 19th century France, where an innocuous-looking piece of torn-up paper launched one of the biggest political scandals in history in 1894. Officers in the French general staff found it in a wastepaper basket, and when they pieced it back together, they discovered that someone in their ranks had been selling military secrets to Germany. They launched a big investigation, and their suspicions quickly converged on one man, Alfred Dreyfus. He had a sterling record, no past history of wrongdoing. No motive as far as they could tell. However, Dreyfus was the only Jewish officer at that rank in the army, and unfortunately at the time the French army was highly anti-Semitic. The other officers compared Dreyfus's handwriting to that on the paper and concluded it was a match, even though outside professional handwriting experts were much less confident about the similarity. They searched Dreyfus's apartment and went through his files looking for signs of espionage. They didn't find anything. This just convinced them that not only was Dreyfus guilty, but he was also sneaky, because clearly he had written all of the evidence. He had hidden all of the evidence. Excuse me. They looked through his personal history for incriminating... He hid all the evidence. They looked through his personal history for incriminating details. They talked to his former teachers and learned he had studied foreign languages in school. Oh my God, which demonstrated to them a desire to conspire with foreign governments later in life. Oh my God, does this sound familiar, guys? His teachers, it sounds like the ridiculousness that's going on in our news every single day. His teachers also said that Dreyfus had a good memory, which was highly suspicious since a spy must remember lots of things. So everything is used as a smear here. The case went to trial and Dreyfus was found guilty. Afterwards, officials took him into the public square. They ritualistically tore his insignia from his uniform and broke his sword in two. This was called the degradation of Dreyfus. He was sentenced to life imprisonment on the aptly named Devil's Island, this barren rock off the coast of South America. He spent his days there alone, writing letter after letter to the French government, begging them to reopen his case so they could discover his innocence. While you might guess that Dreyfus had been set up or intentionally framed by his fellow officers, historians today don't think that was what happened. As far as they can tell, the officers genuinely believed that the case against Dreyfus was strong. So the question arises, what does it say about the human mind that we can find such paltry evidence to be compelling enough to convict a man? This is a case of what scientists refer to as motivated reasoning, a phenomenon which our unconscious motivations, desires, and fears shape the way we interpret information. Some pieces of information feel like our allies. We want them to win. We want to defend them. And other pieces of information are the enemy. We want to shoot them down. That's why I call motivated reasoning soldier mindset. While you've never persecuted a French Jewish officer for high treason, you might follow sports or know someone who does. When the referee judges your team has committed a foul, you're probably highly motivated to find reasons why he's wrong. If he judges the other team committed a foul, that's a good call, etc. Our judgment is strongly influenced unconsciously by which side we want to win, and this is ubiquitous. Again, this is known as, confirmation bias. This shapes how we think about our health, our relationships, how we decide how to vote, and what we consider fair or ethical. What's most scary to me about motivated reasoning or soldier mindset is just how unconscious it is. We can think we're being objective and fair-minded and still wind up ruining the life of an innocent person like Dreyfus or Tulsi Gabbard or Bernie Sanders. Fortunately for Dreyfus, there was also a man named Colonel Picquart. He was another high-ranking officer in the French army, and like most people, he assumed Dreyfus was guilty. Also, like most of his peers, he was somewhat anti-Semitic. But at a certain point, Picquart began to suspect, what if we're all wrong about Dreyfus? So he had skepticism of his own thoughts about this and the thoughts that he agreed about with everyone else. Even after Dreyfus was in prison, he also discovered that another officer in the army had handwriting that perfectly matched the torn-up memo. It took Picquart 10 years to clear Dreyfus's name. 10 years. And for part of that time, he himself was put in prison for the crime of disloyalty to the army. Some people feel that Picquart shouldn't be regarded as a hero because he was an anti-Semite. I agree that kind of bias is bad, but I believe that the fact that Picquart was anti-Semitic makes his actions more admirable because he had the same reasons to be biased as his fellow officers, but his motivation to find and uphold the truth trumped all of that. To me, Picquart is a poster child for what I call scout mindset, the drive not to make one idea win or another lose, but to see what's there as honestly and accurately as you can, even if it's not pretty, convenient, or pleasant, or if it doesn't line up with your already assumed signs of right and wrong. I've spent the last few years examining Scout mindset and figuring out why some people, at least sometimes, seem able to cut through their own prejudices, biases, and motivations in an attempt to see facts and the evidence as objectively as they can. The answer I found is emotional. Emotional. Just as soldier's mindset is rooted in an emotional response, a scout mindset is too, but it's simply rooted in different emotions. For example, scouts are curious. They're more likely to say they feel pleasure when they learn new information to solve a puzzle. They're more likely to feel intrigued when they encounter something that contradicts their expectations. Scouts also have different values. They're more likely to say they think it's virtuous to test their own beliefs. They're less likely to say that someone who changes her mind seems weak. And above all, scouts are grounded, which means their self-worth as a person isn't tied to how right or wrong they are about any particular topic. For example, they can believe that capital punishment works, and if studies come out that show it doesn't, they can say, looks like I might be wrong, doesn't mean I'm bad or stupid. This cluster of traits is what researchers have found, and I found anecdotally, predicts good judgment. The key takeaway about these traits associated with scout mindset is that they have little to do with how smart you are or how much you know. They don't correlate very closely to IQ at all. They're about how you feel. I keep coming back to a particular quote from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I'm sorry if I munched that. Author of The Little Prince. If you want to build a ship, don't drum up your men to collect wood and give orders and distribute the work, he said. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. In other words, if we really want to improve our judgment as individuals and as societies, what we need most is not more instruction in logic, rhetoric, probably, or economics, even though those things are all valuable. What we most need to use those principles well is scout mindset. We need to change the way we feel, to learn how to feel proud instead of ashamed when we notice we might have been wrong about something. Or to learn how to feel intrigued instead of defensive when we encounter some information that contradicts our beliefs. So the question you need to consider is, what do you most yearn for? To defend your own beliefs or to see the world as clearly as you possibly can? Excellent. Excellent stuff. By Julia Galef. I'm going to post this below. And lastly, this is from like late last week, and something I was meaning to cover, but just throwing in this crazy story about the bomb cyclone sets record as strongest October storm ever in Boston area. This is from October 17th. An intensifying coastal storm bombed out overnight and brought flooding rain and damaging winds to the area. Low pressure rapidly intensified as it moved up the coast into the northeast late Wednesday into Thursday. The storm's central pressure plummeted 30 millibars in only 15 hours from late Wednesday morning to early Thursday morning. And they had extreme winds up to 90-mile-per-hour gusts were observed in Provincetown. Logan Airport reported a gust 70 miles per hour. Wicked winds. That's funny. This wicked being very New England. It was wicked. Downed numerous trees, limbs, and power lines. Over 500,000 residents lost power in New England. Yeah, I know it's a little bit late for me to be covering this, but I just wanted, more extreme weather events, of course, ongoing. And this will just continue to happen. Records broken every month, every week, over and over again. Okay, guys, so tomorrow I'm going to do a live stream. Tomorrow being Thursday, live stream at 1 p.m. Excuse me. And so tune in for that. Don't forget Friday gas strike this week. I will talk about it again tomorrow. Am I forgetting anything? I don't think so. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.